I posted messages on Facebook using Telegram. And I can post messages on Facebook using YouTube, I think. And I think I'm going to try that. I have been out of bed since 2 something, no longer allowed to sleep and wondering how long it will be before I am dead. And wondering how we switch ourselves to compassion when we feel someone saying something like that must be a threat. It feels like a threat, doesn't it? Soon. That is threatening to you. Not that it's happening, only that I'm saying it to you personally. Because if I'm saying it to you personally, even in a public venue, I am asking you to respond to it. And I cannot see a way of taking responsibility that does not require me to share these things. Because the people who don't have this information get sick, get permanently injured, their lives are lost, they are ejected from their families and communities. No one believes them. This could happen to any of those people out there who get defensive when introduced to the information. It's amazing that they feel abused by it, but they've been abused the whole time. So it's not surprising that it feels like abuse. And I am a much easier scapegoat. I am the easiest scapegoat? Question mark. Are there easier scapegoats than me? I feel like a reviled being. There have been some people in the world who worked very hard to impress upon me that I am a reviled being. But the people saying those things aren't really able to have a continuing conversation. And so I think that what it sounds like they mean is a mysterious thing and is not something about which we should be assuming. I think people who say things like that to me, even the most hurtfully, it is also a possibility that they are trying to get help that they need, and they don't know how to use the words that are best either. And the chances that they have unacknowledged or unrecognized, undiagnosed, unwitting, uninformed misinformation to brain damage on the basis of neurotoxic substances in the environment that have been said to be regulated. Well, all our brain function may be compromised for reasons, lots of reasons. I'm very lonely and I miss sleeping. And I'm going to make a new channel about dying well. I'm really grateful for that idea that a friend gave me. It's what I've been trying to do. But when I cannot find enough oxytocin support, the subject changes from how to die well or not die at all to please don't make me die screaming. Because that seems to be all I'm going to be doing. If I cannot meet enough of my needs, I end up thrashing in the bathtub and screaming. And I can listen to the recording later if I have a recorder that is working. but it happens frequently enough that I know how it goes. I know that I have a very bad breakdown of systems, and I get myself to the tub to mitigate them, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And when I thrash, I hurt myself. You thrash, your limbs hit things, and you hurt yourself because you can't control your movements because your body is dying. And I'm just making noise, screaming. I'm just making noise. The body is too. I cannot formulate words to be most polite, cannot communicate in ways others would prefer, because trauma in our culture is pathologized. Physical trauma is pathologized. And then there are these outs. Like, you can have an out. Like, your physical trauma may not be, the trauma may not be pathologized. It may be recognized as trauma. You may have an out where your trauma gets recognized as trauma, but most trauma is not recognized as trauma in these mainstreamy Americanish cultures. Most trauma is pathologized to be the fault of the person who has been hurt. That is what is very common. Hashtag trauma fashion. So when we speak about the things that are happening to us, we must use words that are the truth, and we must use words we have access to. And when that is the thing that we do, most often people tell us we are impolite or hurtful without acknowledging the ways we are being hurt. And there's an awful lot of exasperation and defensiveness that comes from people who are not themselves being tortured to death. And so when they get so defensive, like, you recognize that the person in front of you is really suffering and your signals are not getting through, and maybe there's nothing you can do. The problem is, each time someone I care about has a response like this, it becomes more obvious that they don't know what the problem is. They don't know the source of their suffering, and they're reacting as if the source is me, at the same time as they use words that clearly suggest they don't want to think that it's me. They don't think it's me, but they're reacting to me because I am the most intense source of information about things that are scary and things that sound threatening. I'm using all of those words I'm not supposed to use in polite company. It is literally the only way survivors have of telling you what's happening. The words that we are using sound terrible, and they elicit these upsetting reactions in the people who hear them, but we don't have another way to tell you what's happening. And we don't have another way to share the expertise we've accumulated that has kept us alive. If we wish to care about other people, we would communicate what's happening to us. It is caring to do so. But while we are being beaten and stabbed and tortured to death, trying to communicate these things, we cannot do so politely. Sorry. And the crux of this misunderstanding, or we can just call it cultural psychosis, because it's a doozy. And if you make a nice little map of it, I might have an easier time remembering it too. I don't have a map in front of me, but I have benefited from having this information beaten into my body. So I am the storage device and the pain response, sharing with others how we can all be safer and less in pain in community together. And I'm going to keep being brave, and I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm going to keep trying to not be dead, even when the ways that people have to communicate with me, their discomforts, leave me feeling that I'm better off dead. If I'm trying to help others and others do not recognize it as help and would much rather not hear from me, I would do them a favor by committing suicide. Right? Right. But I'm not supposed to do that either. I think it would be so interesting to engage in a public conversation that is a choose your own adventure as we put ourselves in the shoes of survivors of severe environmental conditions and consider that we could not do better than they are doing, and we had better start listening if we don't want to be caught off guard and end up for years or decades screaming and no one able to hear us. I do not wish this experience for people I care about. People I care about seem to react strongly if they are forced to have anything to do with me. It must be me. It must be me.